afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. It's time for the latest instalment of the EFL Transfer Zone show here on the channel. We're going to be running through all the latest EFL transfer news, done deals and gossip. My name is Sam Rourke, the chief editor at Football League World UK. I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Ben Wignall and Toby Wilding. Ben, how are we this afternoon?
Yeah, we're going to have had a lot of actual football action to look at in the last couple of weeks, haven't we? And there's not been too many confirmed additions, but the rumours are definitely heating up as we get into the final 2 weeks of the transfer window. I think it's 2 weeks today, I think it closes. So we're definitely seeing some major moves being made by clubs in the EFL.
Yeah, for sure. Toby, how are you getting on?
Yeah, good, thanks. Really looking forward to these last couple of weeks. It's obviously the time when a lot of eye-catching deals come forward, and there's still a lot of hope that some good business can be done. So, doing good. Looking forward to all that coming through.
Good stuff. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, so get yourself in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on the transfer rumours we're going to be talking about on today's show. We're going to touch on a couple of done deals first. There hasn't been loads over the last few days in the EFL. And most of the show we're touching on the EFL transfer rumours. Let's get straight into it. Right, let's just touch on two done deals that have taken place over the last few days in the Championship. And Stoke City have had a busy summer transfer window. They confirmed the loan additions of Liam Delap from Manchester City, 19-year-old City striker. Joins, and Tariq Fosu as well from Brentford joins on a season-long loan. The wingers struggled for game time under Thomas Frank at the Bees, but he joins up with Michael O'Neill Stoke. Ben, let's come to you first. Let's touch on Liam Delap then first. This is a player that was subject to a permanent bid from Southampton in the Premier League. That got rebuffed. Had loads of interest in the summer transfer window, given his impressive form in the youth setup at Manchester City. Is Stoke a good destination for Liam Delap and for the Potters? Do you think it's a good move for the club?
I think it is a good deal for all parties, yeah. And I think it was pretty obvious that Man City weren't going to sell him permanently. I think he's got a very bright future there. The amount of goals he's scored at youth level and under 23 level for them, it's very, very eye-catching. And I think, as Pep Guardiola said, he's outgrown developmental football, much like James McAtee has, who's gone to Sheffield United for the season. And I think Stoke, in a lot of ways, is a very good location for Delap. Obviously, his dad, Rory, is a first-team coach there, and that's probably swayed things potentially in their favour over West Brom. But, location-wise, it'll be, pretty easy to get to from the Manchester, Cheshire way. So that's another positive for all parties. And adding to that front line they've got with Jacob Brown, Tyrese Campbell and Dwight Gale, that's a serious amount of options to have for a Championship club. With all those four players at the top of their game, then Stoke shouldn't have any trouble scoring goals. Obviously, they need the service as well from out wide. And if Michael O'Neill sticks with his 3-5-2 system, then the wing-backs are going to have to be a little bit more productive than they have been so far this season. But he's definitely a very good option, both in the formation that O'Neill's playing now, and if he wants to change to a 4-3-3, Delap could be the leading man through the middle with Campbell and Brown either side of him. So it's a very good signing, and one that most of the Championship will probably be very envious of.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the biggest challenge for Liam Delap is adapting to the rigours and demands of frequent men's football. As I said, he's impressed in the youth setup at Manchester City over the years. Has played a handful of times for the City first team as well. Toby, do you expect Liam Delap to adapt to the second tier and playing consistently up front for Stoke?
Yeah, I would think so. As sort of Ben alluded to there, he is at that stage now where he is ready for this sort of football. And I think he's going to get the opportunities, isn't he? I mean, I can't imagine Manchester City will have agreed to send him to Stoke without some sort of guarantee that he is going to get regular football. So there should be plenty of opportunities for him to show what he can do at this level. And I think sort of things do point to him being able to cope with those demands. You sort of look back to the way he's performed for City in the past in those cup outings. He's been able to make an impact against such sides at this level he's going to be playing against with Stoke. So that certainly bodes well for him in that sense. And I think as well, as we've touched on, Stoke need goals badly right now. Even with the signings they have sort of made already this summer, that they've still yet to really find their touch in front of goals. So you would feel now that having come in and with that expectation for game time, Delap is surely going to be given the opportunity to prove that he can be that main man and put the ball in the back of the net on a consistent basis. And having that sort of weight of expectation on his shoulders and getting used to that at such an early stage of his career is something that, again, he's probably going to serve him well going forward in the future when he is sort of looking to make his way at the Etihad after this loan deal comes to an end.
Yeah, let's just touch on Tariq Fosu briefly then, Ben. Made his debut for the Potters last night in their 2-2 draw with Middlesbrough, was deployed as a right wing-back, has played right wing-back before for Brentford, I suppose most naturally known for being an attacking winger. What's your thoughts on this move for Stoke City? It's quite evident that Fosu needs game time. He hasn't had much of it over the last few seasons. For Stoke, a good signing in your eyes?
I think it is, yeah. I think he played 4 times for Brentford at right back in the 2020-21 season when they were in the Championship. He's also played there for Gordon as well, so he's going to be able to play as a wing back, he's a natural winger first and foremost. But the modern day wing back nowadays, you see with Middlesbrough, Ryan Giles and Isaiah Jones, they're pretty much wingers, aren't they? He's going to be, getting behind the full back and playing balls into the box. So I think he's going to suit Michael O'Neill's system if he does stick with that 3-5-2. But if he does want to change, he has changed to a 4-3-3 late on in some games so far this season. Fosu's another option to play further forward, like Jacob Brown and Tyrese Campbell options in that position if they do want to, if Michael O'Neill does want to change that. So Fosu can play a number of different positions. He's a very electric player on his day. He was pretty much featured off the bench a lot for Brentford when they did get promoted, but he was definitely crucial to that promotion run. He did have some good contributions. So I think for Stoke, it is a very good and shrewd signing.
Yeah, Stoke fans, let us know in the comments your thoughts on the addition of Liam Delap and Tariq Fosu. We'd love to get your thoughts. Right, let's look into some EFL transfer rumours next. This looks like it's going to be one of the big EFL transfer sagas in the last 2 weeks of the summer window, and that revolves around Watford forward Joao Pedro. Newcastle have submitted a £20 million bid for the Brazilian 20-year-old. It was rejected. Watford, as I understand it just now, had a bit of information just come in during this show that Watford are demanding £35 million for Joao Pedro in this summer window. And by all accounts, Newcastle won't stump up that sort of money. That's as I just understand it now coming through. Ben, let's come to you first. Joao Pedro, a fantastic footballer, a player that really should be playing higher than the Sky Bet Championship. 1 goal so far this season, 3 goals last term in the Premier League with the Hornets. Let's look at this from a Newcastle perspective. Can you see why Eddie Howe's side are making a move for Pedro?
I can see that, yeah. He can play a number of different positions. He's first and foremost a striker, but he can, cutting off the left. He's been kind of playing as a number 10 for Watford in Rob Edwards' system, and he's, most importantly, he's a very young player who's got the scope to improve. I know he only scored 3 times for Watford in the Premier League last season, but I get the feeling that if he's surrounded by more creative players, the likes of Alan St-Maximin in that Newcastle team, I think he can flourish even further. He's definitely he's got that Premier League quality, and he's got a lot of years ahead of him to improve. So I'm not surprised that Newcastle are interested in him, and I'm not surprised if they do go on to make further offers for him.
Yeah, there is a Brazilian contingent at Newcastle already with Joelinton and Bruno Guimaraes as well. So you can see the appeal from Joao Pedro's perspective. Toby, as I just said, £35 million is what I understand Watford want for Joao Pedro. Is that the sort of figure you feel he's worth, or do you think that's quite a lofty sum of money for Pedro at the moment?
Maybe it is a bit high, given, as you say, the fact that he wasn't the most prolific in the Premier League last season. But nevertheless, I can completely understand why Watford are setting their price tag at that sort of level. I mean, I was just looking now, he's still got 3 years left on his contract at Vicarage Road for starters. So it's not as if they are under any pressure to sell him this window in particular. And especially when you consider the sort of the fee that they've already received for Emmanuel Dennis with his move to Nottingham Forest this summer, that sort of means that they've already got sort of funds in the bank in that sense as well. So certainly I can understand why they would be wanting such a high price for Pedro if he was to move on. And again, you've got to consider how big a player he would be for them in the Championship this season. You know, Watford are obviously among the favourites for promotion, and the fact they have Pedro is a massive factor in that. And if he is someone who can take them back up to the Premier League this season, then sort of the windfall they will get from a promotion and a return to the top flight would be worth so much more to them than that sort of fee that they would be getting for him with that one single sale. So for me, I think Watford are taking the right stance for them with setting that sort of valuation for Pedro.
Yeah, the noises coming out of Vicarage Road suggests that they'd be more inclined to sell Ismaila Sarr over Joao Pedro. That's the sort of latest line of communication coming out from Watford. We're going to touch on Ismaila Sarr shortly on this show. He's attracting interest as well. Watford fans, get yourself in the comments. What do you make of Joao Pedro's situation at Vicarage Road right now? Do you think he's worth £35 million? Let us know. It wouldn't be an EFL Transfer Zone show without talking about Ben Brereton Diaz at Blackburn Rovers. Another club have joined the race to sign the Chilean international in this summer window. Fulham have joined that race. Nice, Everton and Bournemouth also credited with an interest in the Championship forward. Toby, let's come to you then on this one, given you are a Rovers supporter. You were sort of suggesting before we came on air that you'd almost welcome the sale of Brereton Diaz right now. This is a saga that's sort of rumbled on for months on end, it seems. What's your current stance on Brereton's situation and also the Fulham interest?
First off, from a Fulham perspective, again, I can see that being a good signing for them. It does still look like they need attacking reinforcements, doesn't it? Obviously, now with the injury to Manor Solomon as well, it looks like he's going to be out until after the World Cup, at least, is the talk. So that's sort of cancelled out his signing. It leaves Fulham back at square one in terms of bringing in another attacking option. So Diaz, to me, looks for them to be a useful one who could fill that role. Obviously, we saw last season and again at the start of this campaign just how much he can score goals, which is important, I think, as well. You know, the role he plays, he's got that versatility that means he can play either centrally or wider, sort of similar, it seems, to the plan Fulham had for Solomon. So it could almost be, to an extent, that sort of like-for-like change in terms of finding the right attacking option. So for them, it looks like it would be a good deal if they could get it done, not least with the clubs they would be beating out to win that race. And yeah, as I say, from a Blackburn perspective, I think the performance last night at Reading was a massive wake-up call in terms of what Rovers need to do in these last 2 weeks of the transfer window. You've got Daniel Ayala and Ash Phillips, who for various reasons haven't played very much football at all prior to this season, who are now having to sort of put in starts week in, week out in the Championship because there are no other centre-backs. I mean, both were sort of cramping up at the end of the rearguard action win over West Brom on Sunday, and the 2 days between was just not enough for them to recover. So that highlights the need there. Right back as well, Rovers look short if Britton picks up an injury as he did on Sunday. It's between, say, a John Buckley in an unnatural position or a Joe Rankin Costello, who's sort of really struggled to re-establish himself since injury problems last season. And then up front as well, for all the talk of replacing the key players who went last campaign, you've still got the issue of replacing an Adam Armstrong that hasn't been done from the summer before, and that left Jack Vale up front last night when Thomason looked to give Sam Gallagher a rest, and that means they were starting with a centre forward whose game time last season largely came with 14 games and 3 goals in a loan spell for Halifax in the National League. So it just feels like there is a huge amount still for Blackburn Rovers to do in this transfer window, and the sale of Brereton Diaz and the money they could bring in for him in what is, given his contract situation, their last chance to get a fee for him, could be so important for them in terms of being able to do that. So I think, as disappointing as it would be to see an individual such as him go from a team perspective, which, as the old cliche goes, is no one player bigger than a club, it would arguably be better for Rovers to let him go now, providing they do get an offer coming in that sort of meets that sort of valuation of around £15 million that is being talked about as what they received for Armstrong last summer.
Yeah. Any Blackburn fans, let us know your thoughts on Ben Brereton Diaz's situation. Do you agree with Toby's words there? Fulham, like I said, are the latest club to be linked with a move for the international striker in this summer window. We have 2 weeks left now of this summer transfer window. September the 1st is the deadline. Right, let's touch on some more EFL transfer rumours next. Right, we're going to go back to Vicarage Road and Watford. Ismaila Sarr, as I already touched on the show, is attracting interest, heavy interest in particular from Crystal Palace in the Premier League. Talks are underway between Crystal Palace and Watford regarding potential transfer agreement between both clubs. Sarr's enjoyed a strong start to the campaign, including that absolute wonder goal against West Bromwich Albion at the Hawthorns. Ben, let's come to you then. Ismaila Sarr, again, another player in that sort of Joao Pedro mould who probably should be playing at a higher level. What's your thoughts on this from a Palace perspective? Would he be a good addition there for the Eagles?
I think he would, yeah. I think a front three of Ismaila Sarr, Ebere Eze and Wilfred Zaha would be, pretty electric, and that's not even including Michael Elise. You could probably play all 4 in one team with perhaps Eze in the number 10. That'd be pretty exciting at Premier League level. I think Sarr is an interesting one. He scored 10 goals in 2 Premier League seasons for Watford, but I think you could have the same argument with Joao Pedro. I think in a team surrounded by better, more creative players, he could probably be more productive in terms of goals and assists. I think we reported last week that Watford were looking at £25 million for Ismaila Sarr, and I think that was before the Emmanuel Dennis deal was done. So I think there could potentially be less desperation now for Watford to cash in on Sarr, but I still think it looks more likely than not. I think he would be a good fit for Palace, but I could see a few more teams potentially interested in between now and the end of the window, and I think it'll be interesting to see if he's in the squad for Saturday, because Rob Edwards has said he's back in training, and if he isn't in the squad, then I could potentially see a move happening pretty quickly.
Yeah, you touched on the fact that Emmanuel Dennis has departed Watford already. He left for Forest. Interest emerging in Joao Pedro and now Ismaila Sarr. Toby, can Watford cope with the loss of all 3 of them? Because at one stage, over the last few weeks, you expected maybe one might leave. They'd be able to keep 2 of the 3. But it's looking likely now that they could lose all 3 of their most prized assets. Do you think Watford will struggle with not having any of them involved?
To be honest, I actually think that they could cope. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would be an absolutely massive loss. It's a Premier League front 3 they've got there that they could potentially be losing in the Championship. But despite that, I think, you sort of look at the other attacking options they've got there. Keenan Davis, we saw how good he can be at this level when he was on loan at Forest last season. You've got the likes of Ray Minaj from Barcelona. You don't play for them at any sort of level without having a great amount of quality. There's Vacuum Bio who's coming as well. So they've still got plenty of attacking threat, even if they do lose them 3. And also, as we've touched on, these are some big fees that teams would have to pay to Watford to sign those players. And that, of course, means that Watford have then got a good deal of money there to go out and bring in even more players who can strengthen that squad further and fill those voids left by any of the three who do go. So for me, I do think, as disappointing as it would be for them to lose three players of that quality, I think they would still be in a good position to compete for promotion regardless.
Okay, Watford fans, let us know your thoughts in the comments with regards to the situation of Ismaila Sarr. Crystal Palace are in talks for the winger. Nothing is advanced just yet, though, on that one. Right, let's look at a few more EFL transfer rumours next. Right, let's look at a Football League-wide exclusive. We were the first to reveal that Middlesbrough have submitted an inquiry for Preston North End striker Emil Riis Jakobsen. Jakobsen scored 16 league goals for PNE last term, is really emerging as one of the Championship's leading marksmen. Boro have been in the market for a new striker all summer, have been after a number of players, but haven't been able to land a target just yet with 2 weeks left of the window. But Emil Riis has emerged as a prime contender for Middlesbrough. Ben, let's come to you first then, given you are a PNE fan. Reports do suggest that it's going to take at least £8 million to prize Emil Riis away from Deepdale this summer. What's your stance on the whole situation then? Is he someone that Preston need to be keeping hold of? And also, would he be a good addition for Boro?
Well, I've never known a striker who scored 17 league goals. I think he got 17, another one given to him after the end of the season from earlier on. Never known someone like that to be so divisive when it comes to a particular fan base. I think some fans are on the side he's got a lot of flaws and they should cash in at the first opportunity, but others believe it's a kind of a do not sell it at all cost situation. And I can kind of see the reason from both sides. He does have first touch issues sometimes, and especially with one-on-ones, he has fluffed them on occasion. But I think what he brings is he can create a chance out of nothing. The amount of times he scored last season when it looked as though it was hard, it was very difficult to even get a shot on target. It was mind-blowing, some of the goals he scored. So I think North End, we've created a lot of chances already this season. I think 60 shots in 4 games, and I know we've only scored 1 goal, but Riis has only started 2 of them. He's come off the bench for the last 2, as Ryan Lowe's gone with 1 up front in Troy Parrott. But I think if the chances do fall to Riis like they should do, the amount we're creating, I think that Riis will start to score goals this season. And I think you can understand why Chris Wilder's looking at him. Obviously, scoring the 17 goals last season, he's a similar profile to Jørgen Strand Larsen, who he's been keen on for a number of weeks. But for the price, personally, the 8 million that has been reported that apparently PNE want, I think it would take a bit more than that to cash in on Riis. But I think from a business perspective, I do think if an offer of around 10 million came in, which would be the transfer record, then I do think PNE would maybe reluctantly accept, but I'm not convinced that Middlesbrough will stretch to that. So whilst I think he would be a good signing for Boro, I don't think they're going to pay what PNE want for Riis, and I'd be more than happy for him to remain a PNE player.
Okay. Toby, from a Boro perspective, is he someone you feel could fire Boro to promotion, given that is their sort of main aim this season? We've seen Chuba Akpom impress in his early stages of the Championship season. Is injured at the moment. Duncan Watmore as well, scoring last night for Boro. But is he someone you feel can deliver the goals for him?
Yeah, I think there is certainly that potential there, isn't there? As Ben touched on there, he has that ability to sort of come up with a goal out of very little, and it does feel like that is something that maybe Boro need a bit more of at the minute. I mean, there were talks about earlier in the window, wasn't there, about Wilder wanting 3 new strikers in. I guess they've got 2 so far with Hop and Force, but it does feel slightly telling that it is still Chuba Akpom and Duncan Watmore who Boro seem to be relying on for the goals at the minute, when they were 2 who were being talked about as potentially almost surplus to requirements when we started the window, when there was this expectation of an attacking overhaul at the club. So certainly it does feel like they still need to add to that attacking setup that they've got at the minute. And as we say, Riis clearly knows how to score at this level, which is would be a huge asset for Boro to have. So I do think it is one that could be a rather useful signing for them if they can't, pull off a deal such as Jorgen Strand Larsen. There's clearly still a need to bring in another striker, and Riis could be that man.
Yeah, any P&E Borough fans, let us know your thoughts on the situation of Emil Riis. We'd love to get your thoughts. We had a comment come in from AFC MX on YouTube. I believe this is to do with the Ismaila Sarr topic. He needs to go. He's too good to be there. It's better for him to go for his career. As I understand it, I believe that is to do with Ismaila Sarr. Right, let's look at West Bromwich Albion. They are in the market for a striker as well. It's been a pretty goal-shy start for Steve Bruce's side in the league. A 0-0 draw with Cardiff City last night at the Hawthorns has added to the frustrations amongst the Baggies faithful. Daryl Dike is, of course, injured at the moment. Carlan Grant isn't delivering the goals right now. Lewis Grabban, currently a free agent after his departure from Nottingham Forest, is on their radar. 34 years old now, but certainly does know where the back of the net is in the second tier. Ben, let's come to you first. Would Lewis Grabban be a good solution to sort of West Brom's goal-shy woes so far?
I think he'd be a good option if he can keep fit. I think he missed the latter part of last season, didn't he, with an injury, missed the playoffs in Nottingham Forest going up, and I think that would be a worry if West Brom are targeting him. I think they've lost out on Liam Delap to start with. Very interested in, and the options are, if they're not going to want to spend money, they're very slim. So I think Grabban's probably the best of a bunch they could probably bring in. We know he's still got the goal scoring abilities in his 30s now, but he scored 12 times last season in the Championship. So if he gets that kind of service, and with John Swift and Jed Wallace in that team, I've seen no reason why he wouldn't. I think he'd be a very good option to rotate with Carlan Grant and obviously Daryl Dike when he does return to fitness. And like I said, there's not that many options in the market if you're working on a budget. So I think Grabban on a 1-year deal would be a smart sign for West Brom should Steve Bruce decide that he needs to explore the free agents market and can't afford another permanent option for a transfer fee.
Yeah, I suppose chance creation hasn't been an issue at West Brom so far this season. An abundance of chances have been created with the likes of Jed Wallace and John Swift, like you say, Ben. But it has been then conversion of them chances that have been West Brom's downfall so far. Toby, what's your thoughts on a potential 1-year deal for Lewis Grabban on a free for West Brom?
I think that'd be a really smart piece of business for the Baggies. As you say, free agent, so it's cheap, it's available. 12 goals last season. He clearly can still make an impact in the Championship at this level, and I do think he'd still sort of fit into that sort of role. Even at his age, I think he'd be able to be the right sort of player for West Brom. I mean, I watched them at Blackburn on Sunday, and for me, they didn't create too many goal-scoring opportunities, but there were two sort of clear-cut chances, one at 0-0, one at 2-1, where one was a Dean Garner free header at the back post, and one was a Carlan Grant. Sort of Kaminsky produced a stunning point-blank save, but either side of him, and it's a goal, and it's one of them. I sort of feel like that is the sort of thing that Lewis Grabban would thrive off. He's perhaps not going to be that striker at his age who's an all-round, all-action striker who's going to be dropping deep and making things happen. But he is someone who, in that sort of position, in and around that penalty area where those chances came for West Brom on Sunday, he would be backing him to gobble those up. And had he been there and doing that, it could have been a very different story. So in that sense, I do think that it would be a signing that could work well for the Baggies. Okay,
any West Brom fans, let us know your thoughts on the interest in Lewis Grabban. Right, one more EFL transfer rumour to touch on next. Interest is mounting in Norwich City right back Max Aarons. The Canaries have rejected 2 bids for the 22-year-old defender in the last few days. Bids have come in from Italian duo Atalanta and Monza. Norwich are willing to let Max Aarons leave in this summer window, but of course it needs to be for an acceptable fee. Ben, what do you make of Max Aarons' situation at Carrow Road? Do you expect him to stay on after September the 1st, or could you see him departing?
Well, considering these Italian offers have been loan ones, I don't see any reason why Norwich should accept something like that. I think only if it's an obligation to buy after the loan for, north of 20 million, around 25 million, should they only be really considering it. I think Aarons is good enough to be playing in the Premier League, for a lower end or mid-table side week in, week out. And I think going into a club, I know Monza have got a bit of money. They're owned by Silvio Berlusconi, who's the ex AC Milan owner. They've just been promoted to the top tier, and they've got a bit of clout behind them. I think he's a lot better than going there. I think a club in England could potentially take a punt on him before the deadline, but don't think there's that many teams in the Premier League who do need a right back. I think there's one obvious team that he has been linked to in the past is Manchester United, that I could potentially see coming in for him, but I think Norwich will be asking for around the 25 million mark, and that's obviously a lot of money for a player who's got Premier League experience, but he has been relegated a few times. I know he's a young lad and still improving and learning, but yeah, I can probably see him staying at Norwich at least until January, and I think the situation could be assessed. But, the start they've had, which has been pretty indifferent, I could probably see him kind of with the back of his mind just thinking that is it right to stay on for another at least 4 or 5 months? But I think in terms of these offers that have come in, I don't think they're good enough.
Yeah, he's been heavily involved in the early advances of this season. He has also got on the score sheet for Dean Smith's side. So you'd imagine that Smith would like to retain the services of Aarons this window. But it will be a situation to keep tabs on, certainly, before the September the 1st deadline. Right, well, that brings an end to the EFL Transfer Zone show here on Football League World TV. Thanks for everyone that tuned in to watch this. We've got 2 more shows coming up for you tomorrow. We've got the EFL betting show in the morning, and then, of course, the EFL weekend preview. So make sure to stay tuned to that. If you're watching on repeat on YouTube, please do stick a like in below this video and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us grow on YouTube. But Ben, Toby, thanks for joining me this afternoon. We shall see you all soon.